So for my mandatory criteria, I essentially submitted three different documents. So one was an evidence of just my work at a product company. So I essentially described kind of my experience joining the organization, the work that I did there, the impact I was able to make. So I was able to connect the metrics from just my content marketing efforts to things like revenue for the organization. And it's all storytelling at the end of the day. Through the work that I was able to do, the brand got, of course, increased brand awareness, got more opportunities to connect to customers. That obviously increases revenue. So it's all about finding that connection between what you do on a day-to-day and helping the person on the other side, the person reading the documents through your storytelling, helping them understand how the work that you did was really essential to getting the company to where they are or where they got to, So essentially that document was really just talking about that experience there. I also put some examples of my work. At that company, I did a lot of newsletter writing. I did a lot of content creation, honestly. So I think I just put some links to things like that. I put some images just to give them some context into, when I talk about my work, this is what I'm talking about. Of course, you have to be careful to keep it at 3 pages max. So whilst you're doing storytelling and you're adding all of this information and context, you need to make sure that it is still concise and still has the most important point, as quantitative as possible, has lots of metrics and is succinct really. I also added another document on kind of like just speaking events, so evidence of just like speaking. And in that document I just described, I actually had to choose. I remember I chose some key events that met the criteria, because if you read the technician websites, you see that there's also criteria for, the kind of events that they think work. So I chose those events and I talked about those events and talked about what my contribution to the events were. If I was a speaker, if I was a moderator, added some images as well, really storytelling. I think the third one was also another evidence document from my work at a different product company, and pretty much followed the same format as the first one. And then for optional documents, I did some evidence of impact at a product company as well. Oh no, sorry, I made a mistake actually. For my mandatory document, yeah. One of the documents was actually the one about my salary growth, not the product company, right? So it was about my salary growth at a specific company, and then the events and my work at a different product company. And then for the optional one, I talked about my impact at a product company, and then I talked about also mentoring as well, and impact at the other company I was working at. I really just described my entire career experience, honestly, and broke it down into which ones I wanted to be in optional, which ones I wanted to be mandatory, based on advice from technician websites, and also, of course, based on things that I felt more strongly about as well in terms of my experience so far. And of course, I added my resume, I added a personal statement. Advice for your personal statement, I would say, like, just a tip, use that place. I think a personal statement is really an opportunity to show the person who's reading it who you are, help them understand what you're passionate about, help them understand what it is that you want from your career for the future, and why the UK is the place that you have to be to achieve those things. So that's really what I did with my personal letter. Of course, I added my 3 letters of recommendation. One of them was from a senior leader at a team, at an organization, someone who had worked with me directly. Another one was from someone who is in the industry and knows my work. We've spoken together at a series of events. Another one was from someone else that I'd worked with closely as well, another senior leader at an organization. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I had some supporting letters from, one of them was from a community I had mentored with in the past, and then the other was from another senior leader at an organization I worked with before. So that's kind of like a summary of all the documents I had.